Welcome everyone to the second in a series of webinars hosted by WSP in conjunction with the Major Projects Association on the topic of sustainability. My name is Andy Murray. I'm pleased that this session is going to be delivered by David Simons, who leads WSP's Future Ready program. Future Ready is their flagship innovation and sustainability program, which is all about seeing the future more clearly and working with clients to design future as well as today's needs and codes. So David is impressive. I've got a CV and a bio. So we're in good hands today. So he's internationally respected as a consultant in this space. He's been awarded a number of accolades, including the BusinessGreen.com's Leader of the Year in 2018. And he also provides lots of commentary to the likes of BBC, so that's Radio 4, 5 Live, BBC 2, News 24, and others like CNN and Sunday Telegraph, Guardian, The Times. The list goes on and on, but all on matters of energy, water and sustainability issues. He's got 30 years experience in developing and implementing strong future-focused programs for companies across the world. So we've got an interactive session today, David. You're going to talk and lead that interactive bit for about 30 minutes or so, and then we've got time for questions at the end. So David, over to you.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Andy. And thanks to MPA for organising these sessions as well. They're really good. And thank you all for joining as well. I do appreciate that 9 months just as we start our next batch of lockdown, that webinars can sometimes, the novelty of those can wear off a little bit. So what we're going to try and do is keep this reasonably interactive. I want to obviously share thoughts from WSP and our perspective on lockdown, but also I'm really keen that we get some interaction from yourselves as well. So let's make a start. If we could just have the next slide then, please, Taylor. So the main thing that we want to be covering in this is just what lessons have we been learning from COVID. And I say the frames of reference that we'll use for this is both WSP's, our lesson as an organisation. We employ 50,000 people across the world, and about 8,000 in the UK. So what lessons do we take? Also, what are the sorts of things that our clients have been saying to us, and what are they learning? And then also, just because we've run kind of similar sessions throughout lockdown, so we've also got some quite interesting insights on other elements, and also how it's changed over the past 6 or 7, 8 months or so. I think probably, in terms of the Future Ready program that I run, as Andy said, this is for us. This is all about seeing the future more clearly and then designing for that today. I should just say, seeing the future more clearly is a relative thing. So we have things that we can absolutely see. There are things that we cannot see, and so that is, for example, what is the long-term trajectory of COVID? How many lockdowns will we have in the future? Who will win the US election, etc., etc. We're not trying to have that much sort of crystal ball, and we're not betting WSP's balance sheet on those forward projections. But on COVID, what we are seeing is 3 things. So first of all, COVID is here for a while. So when we first went into sort of COVID and when we first went into lockdown back in April, there was a bit of a temptation to think, once we get through lockdown, it's all gone, it's away. And you know what? I mean, I think you can see this where we're at today. Rates are in many parts actually now just beginning to come down again, but until we have a vaccine, until we have a reliable vaccine, the world is a different place, and how we live and how we work is a different place. And we think that at the least that will continue well into next year as well. I think the point 2 is there are a whole bunch of other trends that we are that we have been tracking, and what we've found is that through COVID, those existing trends are accelerated. So if we just think about, for example, retail, there was already a trend away from the high street towards e-shopping. Well, that frankly has had rocket burners put under it. And the same you could also say for things like home working trends as well. That many of us and our firms were on an incremental trajectory around that. That's now really accelerated. And I think the third area is it's letting us ask much braver questions. So just thinking about one client that I was working with recently, developing a net zero strategy for them. There was large amounts of ways that they were working that had been, there was absolutely out of the question that they would work in various smarter ways of working that would both reduce cost and also reduce carbon. And you know what, COVID has just completely blown those red lines out the water, and actually it's shown that they're working much better. And I think we'll see the same with things like transport networks as well. We're now able to be asking those much braver questions around active travel, walking and cycling, and really building for those. And that's been accelerated from COVID. So let's then go on. Next slide, please, Taylor. Let's just talk a little bit about what's it meaning for us. And I want to talk about the four broad things about what it's meaning for us, and then to share 5 lessons for us as sustainability and CSR professionals. So first of all, I mean, the projects that we work on as WSP or as yourselves, as part of the MPA, it's the advice that we give to our clients. In WSP's case, the designs that we are providing, that is the biggest area of opportunity, biggest area of impact. And as I've mentioned before, what Future Ready does in WSP is we will see the future more clearly on climate, on society, on technology, on resources, and we will get we will get those insights. We'll get them out of an interesting academic conversation, and then we will challenge, inspire, build the culture, and give our teams the confidence to design for that future as well as for today. And probably, that is absolutely the biggest impact that we have as a business, and it's having huge impact because as a business we're working on more than 10,000 projects across the world at any one time, designing for a net zero future, designing for climate change, designing for the future users, is by far and away the biggest impact and opportunity that we have. And one reason why it's so successful for us is because it wins us work as well. In the UK, it's helped us win £85 million of work this year. So it's tremendous. What COVID has done is just one example where we can have all of that forward trend, but inevitably there are trends that we don't know what we don't know. And so for us as WSP, one of the things that COVID has taught is just about designing flexibly and not locking in legacy. And so, I mean, for example, I've put Curzon Street up here. There is huge amounts of Curzon Street Station, the new HS2 station in Birmingham, that's super modular. So things can be plug and played from the heating, the ventilation schemes, through to whole areas of that project, which makes it very, very easy to adapt. And we will see that the same for buildings as well. So the buildings that we design, if you just think about our city centres at the moment, there's just a really interesting question about buildings that are built as offices, the extent to which they're also used for or might be able to be flipped towards resi or to retail or back the other way. And again, the key thing for us is now designing for that adaptability, rather than saying we're designing an office, that's going to be an office forever, but we'll design for an office, but we might well also think or have some conversations with clients about, well, how do we then also, if something happens, how do we make it very easy to adapt, design things that are permanently temporary? And we'll make the same for infrastructure projects as well. So let's flip on to the next slide, please. I think then if I then talk about just some of the direct impacts of how we work, I think one of the things that probably for all of us, the last 6 to 7 months have really asked us, about what's the purpose of the office. We all have offices. Many of us travel into it day in, day out. We expect our admin teams pretty much all the time to have to travel into to those as well. And we do and have done that somewhat unquestioningly. So the fact that, frankly, for the last for the first part of lockdown, certainly, and then my experience, especially for our city centre offices, is that we've had them open, but to be blunt, they've been very underused, and certainly even with social distancing, miles off capacity, because actually teams have been able to say, I can work pretty effectively in different ways. So I think from an estates team and linking across to a CSR perspective, that gives us some really interesting strategic questions to think about what is an office for and why do we have an office, because ultimately it's a mighty big cost, and also it's a big environmental impact for us as well. So I think that is going to be a question that we should ask both for the short term and also for the longer term as well. Let me just ask this, if we can just tailor flip to the next Menti question. So here, for each slider, just give us from a 0 to 100. Give us your feedback in terms of your organisations, and this is all confidential. The reason why your office is there, and how important each of these is, between a 1 and 100. You don't have to overthink it. It's just an opportunity to share. I think for us, again, in WSP, I think actually our answer to this is it sometimes depends by teams and managers as well. So I put the checking up piece slightly flippantly on the bottom, but you know what I mean. We absolutely have some teams within our business where that there is a perception from that manager that unless he or she can see their staff, they don't trust them. Well, you know what, we've really blasted that over the last 6 months or so. So that's quite interesting. So face-to-face meetings, actually, we'll come on and talk about that in maybe in a minute. Relationship building, I think you're dead right. That there's only so much relationships you can do over this sort of scheme and wireless as well. So great, thank you. That's interesting. Let's go just flip back, please, and then to the next slide. I mean, I think then the other piece in our mind is also just this has given us a chance to really think about why do we travel. I personally, I travel to meet teams across the world, to meet clients, and to present at events as well, conferences and the like as well. And frankly, also, you travel into an office quite regularly just because that's what you've done for the last, well, in my case, the last 30 years or so. What COVID has done is it's really given us a chance to question that. I think what's really interesting for us, again, in WSP, is the carbon footprint of our travel is 60% of our direct carbon footprint. We had lots of measures in place, around levies for people taking flights within the UK and the like, and I mean, obviously that's we haven't been doing any of that really over the last 6 to 7 months. I think what we've learnt within the business on this is that there are occasions where client meetings are just so valuable. One of my main clients, I've been working with him virtually for the last 3 months, and I met up with him for a coffee 3 weeks ago. It's tremendous. The relationship is much deeper, but also there's opportunities that I found that it's much more effective as well. So again, if I'm just reflecting on my day today, this morning I did a presentation to 60 students at Leeds University. I'd have absolutely gone on the train to meet them this morning. At then 11 o'clock, I was doing a presentation that would have been in the NEC at Highways UK. I would absolutely have been in the room for that. I'm doing this event now, probably virtually, and then straight after this, I'm on a call with Exeter City Council. Again, probably I'd do that virtually, but there is no doubt at all that IT has both removed the need to travel and also has meant that personally, I think in many respects I can be more effective as well. Next slide, please, Taylor. I think then the last thing which I would say I've been tracking is just I feel that the role of the CSR professional has changed. I think there are practitioners in the CSR arena who the focus is absolutely on top line growth, on winning work, and supporting that, and that feels in really tough times that's a really important place to be, if nothing else because we know how important things like net zero, climate resilience, social value is to clients, and so really, you know, that piece feels like that's a very, very secure area for us as CSR professionals. I think those parts of our CSR programs that have been very focused on things like office energy use, on managing travel, on waste management from offices, on looking at the catering side. We've needed to be nimble on that because, to be honest with you, all of us have had some tough times over this year. Those areas and continuing to run the same sort of campaigns that we might have been just feel a little bit flat-footed at the moment. Things like measuring and reporting against things like TCFD, that they continue to be important and to become more important. But I just can't help thinking that one of the things that COVID has really driven to us is for our profession the importance of really being able to demonstrate business resilience and business relevance. So when you're in tough times, that we all make our roles absolutely indispensable as well. So that then leads us, if I could go to the next slide, I was just going to give us then 5 lessons that I think, and we could make more, but just 5 lessons for the CSR professional and for the major projects that we work on. So I think, first of all, for me, it's just as I was talking about there, just making sure that the work programs that we all have are focused on the most important things, the areas that are directly aligned to the work that we are doing, rather than necessarily support services that are very, very underused at the moment. That we are really making sure that we can demonstrate how that is supporting profitable top line growth, as well, given tough times on that, and just absolutely making sure that our programs are relevant for the world that we are focused in at the moment. If I could go to the next slide, please. I think my second lesson that I've learned is we can all think of companies that have maybe not done so well from an authenticity and fairness perspective, where the warm words on their website and their annual CSR report, when the chips are down, the practices that they have espoused and their behaviours through lockdown have actually shown that that's just veneer thin, and maybe the reality maybe has belied those warm words. It's not easy in any way, shape or form. Within WSP, we've also had to make redundancies in our business as well. But also we've just tried as much as we possibly could to be authentic and to be fair to our teams. So throughout the whole of lockdown, we've continued to have a clear message about compassion, about clients, and about continuity. So compassion, because our staff are having some tough times, some of them. Lockdown and it doesn't suit everybody. As I said, we've had to make some staff redundant in the business as well, and that's frankly really tough to do for everybody, let alone the people that we've had to make redundant. So just doing that in as fair a way as we possibly can, and as a sympathetic way as we can. Then clients, because that they're also having a tough time. Just flip back to the previous slide, Taylor. Thanks. Then continuity, because we've got to have a business that we come out of this. So that is sometimes some of the tough decisions that we've had to make. So I think this provides an opportunity for us to really demonstrate the values that are under our businesses, and to really just make sure that the words that we have on our websites and in our CSR reports and the programs that we run are borne out by reality when when our teams have to make these sorts of decisions. Now let's have the next slide, please. So the next opportunity is I think there's an opportunity to accelerate carbon targets, and I think that would be in two ways. I think the immediate one is that for WSP as a predominantly as a service sector business, we have a target for our direct operations, so from our offices, our travel, and our supply chain to be a net zero business by 2025, reducing our absolute carbon emissions by 4.5% each year, and then offsetting the balance from 2025. So that's in line with the thing called a 1.5 degree science-based target. Do you know what? I mean, this year we've absolutely smashed that out the park. Our offices haven't really been operating. We've mothballed a couple, but the main thing by a mile has been that we just haven't been traveling. And as I say, that's 60% of our carbon footprint. So that gives us just a really great opportunity, frankly, to say, well, look, can we do this faster? And also to have the bravery on that. So let me just ask you another Menti question on that, whether that's also the same. So Taylor, can we just flip to the next question, please? So again, let me just ask you whether in your experience, if the past 9 months has given your firm the opportunity to accelerate your carbon targets. So again, just 4 options on this. I know for some of you, there's a couple of questions that came in that implied that some of you were a little bit new to this area. So don't be ashamed to answer the don't know if you don't know that as well. So yeah, that's pretty interesting, isn't it? That almost half of you have had the opportunity to accelerate your carbon targets through lockdown. And yeah, really interesting to see. As well. So if you just flip back to the presentation, then Taylor, and just so flip to the previous slide still, because I think then the other thing that I just also wanted to mention as well is again just keeping relevance as well. What we found through lockdown and the last 9 months has been that things like net zero have only got more important for our large infrastructure clients. And so we really think this is this is continuing to be important. We've got 30 years to become effectively a fossil-free society and economy. So even through tough times, the last 7 months has given us the chance to work with our exec team. And then a couple of weeks ago, we just launched a new carbon commitment alongside our offices and travel, to say that we will halve the carbon footprint of the designs and the advice that we give to our clients by 2030. It's a super ambitious commitment. frankly, we made it. We got loads of accolades from it, which is great, but it's blooming scary because that's an awful lot of innovation that we're going to have to do. But you know what, just even in spite of the distractions and the challenges, our leadership team has still used this, as I say, it's still a great opportunity to really accelerate and also to set the business apart from our competitors as well, which in tough times becomes more important. Okay, now next slide, please, Taylor. So I got the 3 and the 4 the wrong way around. You will note, but the fourth trend that I think is important is obviously, as I mentioned, we've got lots of programs around working for about greening our offices and focusing on travel and things like that. Well, you know what? I mean, in the UK, 8,000 of our staff, most of them have been working from home for the last 7 or 8 months. So actually, that's given us an opportunity to look at how we can help staff work from home better and refocus some of those programs. So just if you can just flip to the next slide, Taylor. One of the things that we've launched is, and actually we've had this for quite a long time, is a home carbon calculator. So it lets staff very easily calculate the carbon footprint from their home energy, from the things they spend their money on, the cars they drive, public transport, and then, well, holidays. There's not a whole lot of that necessarily going down at the moment, but just a way to be able to say, hey, look, think about this. This matters to you. And we've also licensed this to a couple of other clients as well. So one of them, for example, has launched a green energy tariff for their staff, and has linked that also to an electric car program as well. So just some quite interesting imaginative things, and that's also maybe relevant to us as well. Having set that net zero target, we're also then, as part of our full emissions, going to be measuring and using these sorts of data to give us an idea of what's the carbon footprint for staff's home energy emissions as well, which is what science-based targets requires as well. And then next slide, please. So this is my last one. Is also, as I kind of touched on, that I think the final thing for us as CSR professionals is, I think this, as well as environmental issues, I think the social isolation piece becomes really important. I mean, both to help keep our teams motivated and engaged, but also just because, as I said, with that sort of compassion hat on, loneliness and the like affects different people in different ways, but is also really important. So let me just finish by asking 2 final Menti questions. So Taylor, if I can just ask the first one. So here's a question that I ask. I've asked now, I don't know, probably about 5,000 or 6,000 people, I suppose. So there's no need to overthink this. But yeah, just quickly give a feel for how many names of neighbours do you know? Okay, so I'll just let this come in a bit. I would say that you are probably a more sociable group than average. My goodness, the 6 of you. So what's that? That's almost sort of 20% of you who know 15 names of neighbours or more. That's pretty incredible, to be honest with you. So the research that we've done in the UK, particularly for cities, shows that on average in the UK, we know the names of 2.5 people. And the 3 of you that have answered none, that's not necessarily unusual, particularly if you live in a flat. So 70% of people in our survey of Londoners that we ran recently know the names of not a single other person in their block. And so if you just think about that in the context of lockdown, this is, yeah, it's really interesting and a real opportunity as well. I was on a webinar earlier in the week talking about this area, and it's actually there's a lot of private sector and corporates thinking about what they can be doing in this, not just for their staff, but also as part of their wider business as well. So I think that's an area. And then I just wanted to pick your brains as well. If we could just go to the next slide as well. Is just my last question, because I think I'm also learning a lot on this, as well as really thinking the how can we keep in touch best with our teams? How do we keep sort of feeling cohesive as well? Through lockdown, with many of our teams still working from home. I'd be really interested in what your best thoughts are to keep your teams engaged. Probably in the days where when we started off, the idea of the Zoom quiz was the novelty, but sometimes that wears off. Yeah, it's interesting. Teams, I do agree, is great, and we have quite a focus on in WSP in making sure that that we keep the cameras on. So that's important. Yeah, interesting on the team meetings as well. Yeah, good. I like the cameras on. I like the team coffee break idea is nice as well. I was particularly struck. Sweden has a concept called fika, which legally all of our Swedish teams have a coffee break at about 2:45. And so everybody in our Swedish business, wherever they are, downs tools, and they just go and mingle for about 50 minutes. They do that in the office now. They do that they do that virtually now, and I just think it's really interesting. So good, lovely. Well, thank you for that. Some interesting ideas. Yeah, and I warm to that shorter meetings with breaks. Otherwise, you just end up with teams overload for those loads and loads of hours. Great, lovely that somebody used to have fika there as well. So brilliant. Fantastic, lovely. Okay, thank you, Taylor. Could we just flip back to the slides then? So, look, ladies, gents, just flip on to the next slide. That was really everything that I wanted to do, just by way of intro. So again, just to refocus and just summarise the 5 key learnings for CSR managers that we would say. Focus on the most important things, especially if they grow top line growth, authenticity and fairness. Really important. Opportunity to accelerate carbon targets, and congratulations to those of you that have used that opportunity as well. Great leadership. Helping staff work from home better, and then fifthly, just that real focus on avoiding and helping overcome isolation, both for our teams and also for the wider community. So ladies and gents, that's everything I would want to do. Andy, back to you, if you'd like to cover sort of the Q&A pieces.
Yes, so thank you very much, David. That's really fascinating. So we got some questions that came in right at the beginning when you asked what would people like to know. So I thought I'd just focus on a couple of those first. One relates to your number 4, delivered third, around the accelerating carbon targets. And although over half said they've been able to do that, someone asked the question, how do we not lose sight of net zero? And I guess for some organizations, the imperative to stay trading and to survive the current sort of economic climate, they might lose, or some of the, the strategic initiatives or additional initiatives might sort of fall down the priority list. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. And look, I mean, if your business is in an absolute fight for survival, then that's what you focus on. Otherwise, you deliver net zero by not being in business, obviously. So business continuity is essential. I mean, look, I think I would make 2 points. One, as I made, if your carbon target is focusing on your direct carbon footprint, then lockdown has made an enormous impact on that. So work with your property teams and your operating officer to really make sure that we lock that in, because very often lower carbon ways of working, especially say for example through travel, is a lower cost way of working as well. And then my other point again, as I'd made, the importance that net zero is delivered through the advice and the services that we give to our clients, really far more than our offices and our travel. That's the thing that clients are interested in. That's the thing that we have to deliver as a UK economy, and getting ahead of our competition. That's the way that we grow business. And name me an executive team that doesn't want to find ways of differentiating from the competition that helps them grow and compete in a competitive landscape.
That's good, thanks. We also had a question around, which I sort of think relates to the one of your points around sort of authenticity and fairness, and some of the other aspects around the working from home environment, which is how do we establish a sort of a structured work environment? And some people said, particularly, I think it's probably flashed up on the screen about sort of knowing when to start, stop, and to chill out.
Yeah. I'm probably the worst person to be asking that question to, Andy, to be honest with you, because I do my best, but you're right. I find myself working some fairly long hours here at the moment, just because I've got some fairly chunky deliverables to do. I think, I think that the golden mantra, which I would say, sort of do as I say, not as I do, is try and turn off. Make sure that you're using that time you're not using for the commute to do something else. I will, though, always make sure I have time to exercise every day, just to sort myself out, be at the start of the day or at lunchtime or at the end, and I block that time out in my diary.
Yeah, I've sort of found the commuting time, or the time to travel to client sites or organizations I'm meeting, is my thinking time and my time to get into the topic that I'm going to be discussing or listening to or whatever it might be. And there's a danger, isn't there, that we fill up that time with other meetings or other calls, and we don't therefore get that preparation time between meetings that we do. So we probably just we're having more meetings but less time to think about them. So perhaps I think one of the tips that came up, wasn't it, about giving yourself time to plan and prepare those things. Your comment around designing flexibly, around modular and being more adaptable. So clearly that's going to exist at a facility level, whether it's an office or a factory or whatever. But I guess we need to be looking at that from a sort of town planning perspective, macro level too. So question about what's an office for, we could have the same question about what's a city for.
Yeah, it's a great great. I couldn't agree more. Good questions to be asking throughout. So, I suppose probably the closest I would get to that is with my consultancy hat on. I'm working with 6 local authorities at the moment on their climate emergency strategies. These are big things that they are asking as well. And if you put those together, there's a tremendous book that is a regular go-to book of mine called The Happy City by an author called Charles Montgomery, and he absolutely argues that a happy city is also a green city, is also a low carbon city as well. So the three are intertrained.
Yeah, let's see, we've got lots of questions still coming through. Someone asked a question earlier about, is it just going to be the larger firms that reap the big benefits from lockdown lessons?
I would think absolutely not. I think there's lessons for us all to take on this. I would think one of the advantages of small firms is they can be a bit more nimble, and so can act faster. I think recognizing though that big firms sometimes have a bit more financial depth, and maybe a bit more structure as well to be employing people who can really focus on this full time. But you know what I mean? I think the opportunities to learn and to take action. I don't think size is one of the things that is the least barrier in my mind.
Yeah, I think we've got time for one more question, and there's one there around sort of how good are we at using digital technology to deliver sustainable outcomes. It's obviously been a very rapid learning curve for many organizations over the past 8 months. Is there a lot more to do in terms of it, making best use of digital technology?
I think that depends in terms of what your question is, and in terms of digital. I think, you know, if I put my WSP hat on, I'm incredibly proud of what our IT department has done in terms of getting 8,000 of us in the UK working digitally, working remotely. Teams has worked seamlessly. At that level, it's worked fantastically. I think that there will absolutely be more that we can do. It's giving, again, us in WSP a chance to innovate. So we've been running, for example, a whole series of consultations with the public for our clients. We'd have traditionally hired a drafty church hall to do that. We now have a virtual digital room that people can go round in. It looks absolutely lovely, and we get far more engagement, frankly, through that, rather than asking people to come along at fixed times when it's not necessarily convenient. So I think there's loads to do, but my goodness, yeah, I mean, digital still has miles and miles to go on this, particularly in sort of, you know, BIM for us and digital twins and things like that. So there's still lots and lots to do, while also celebrating, you know, just think about how far we've come in 20 years.
Yeah, great. So I'm aware that we're sort of at our allocated time now. It's been a really good set of lessons from that, David, and some fantastic questions, which I know we will capture these, and perhaps we can consider following up on some of these after the event. So thank you very much, everyone who's attended. And if you've got 15 minutes before your next meeting, so perhaps you can have a bit of fika time. So if we can all now move on to our digital fika, so that would be great. So thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, Andy.
And I think we've got our next slide. Just one last thing about our next event. We've got that, Taylor. Yes, so the third in the series is on the 2nd of December, and it's around measuring and reporting your greenhouse gas emissions. So again, it's the third, and it was the last in the series from WSP before we hand over to AECOM. So please do make time for that. And as with this one, it's 2 o'clock till 2:45.